In this second part, we are studying in the book of Revelation 17 and verse 16. There's just 3 verses left in this chapter 17. Verse 16 says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." I do not take that eating her flesh as literal, because it says after that, "and burn her with fire." And so we can see that she, in Revelation 18, verses 8 to 10, it says, "Therefore shall her plague come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her." And 9 says, "And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come." Now, in verse 8, it says, "In 1 day, death and mourning." But in that verse 10 says, "In 1 hour is thy judgment come." Now, here's an interesting thought here. As we were reading in 17 and 16, it says that these hate the whore, right? And they are the ones responsible for burning her with fire. Do you see that? They shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. But when we read here in Revelation 18, they are mourning her loss. That's food for thought. Verses 15 to 19 says, "And the merchants of these things," because as we have studied about this harlot, this whore, is that she has lived deliciously, or she's been a devourer of a great abundance of merchandise. Because you look at verse 12, it says, "The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all fine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner vessels of most precious wood and brass and marble and iron." It says, "and cinnamon and order." This is in verse 13. Just all kinds of things. It goes on down through verse 14. All the different things. She has an insatiable desire for things, for possessions of everything that you can imagine. And so as we're reading here and looking, that it says here, "The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold, precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught." You see that in verse 18, "and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city?" So you see that she is burned, that there's no denying that. And the cause has come from those kings. Whether somebody pushes a button, like a nuclear weapon of some sort, and says, "Okay, that's it, done." She will come to an end. It'll come in a moment of time, 1 hour at a specified time. I look here in Revelation 17:17, it says, "For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled." So this is God's will. She has done so much that there is a day of reckoning, uh, a time for her to pay for her sins, so to speak, a day of judgment where this all will come to pass, and God places that desire to destroy her in those kings that will do that burning of her. And and then you see again, they agree in that verse 17 to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, that's the Antichrist, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And verse 18 says, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth." And we're talking that her power is extended to all ends of this world, or the uttermost parts of this earth. And wherever there are peoples and nations, she will have a finger there, so to speak. Just keep that in mind. We're going to go on here into Revelation 18. And we look here and see in that first verse, it says, "After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and earth was lightened with his glory." And verse 2 says, "And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird." Now, this passage is telling you that this has become a habitation of devils. You see that. And a hold of every foul spirit. And the cage of every unclean and hateful bird is also referring to demonic activity. It's kind of like when we were studying there about the frogs that come out of the mouth. Let me go back there and look there for a second. In Revelation 16, where we're talking about the vials being poured out, he says, 16, Revelation 16 and verse 15, "I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet." Frogs are not necessarily demonic, but this does give the illustration that they were like frogs. Or if you look in Revelation 9, you see those locusts. Those are demonic, where it says that they come out of the bottomless pit, and they're likened unto locusts. Those things, you know, that the summertime you see grasshoppers and locusts. That does not necessarily mean that they are demonic. It's just giving you an analogy, a figure. And so it is with the cage of every unclean and hateful bird, that they have that appearance. I want you to realize also that Babylon was not always bad, but when it says is fallen, is as in a fallen state. And in other words, and this happens in the lives of people. You know, we talk about Adam and Eve. God created them and they were perfect. They were good until that day when the serpent beguiled Eve and said, "Has God said?" And she looked on the fruit, knowing full well that she should not partake of it. But she made that choice and she gave it to Adam, who was with her. Okay, that's a fallen state now, right? People do make mistakes, they do sin, but Babylon is in a fallen state now. And now there's a price to pay for what she has done. Verse 3 says, "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies." We've talked about this, that when a person is drunk, their judgment is impaired. They have partook, somebody hands you a drink and you drink it, right? Well, if it's wine, a strong drink, then you're going to feel the effects of it. And it says, have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. This has been an abomination to the Lord. And it says the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. We talked about this early on in the study of Revelation 17. You think, well, how do kingdoms even do such a thing as commit fornication? But when you put other things above God, the first commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, your strength. That is the first commandment. So when people, even as countries, forsake, as Israel did forsake the Lord and went after, we read it in Jeremiah and we read it again in Ezekiel 23, where she sought after different lovers in other countries. She lusted over those things. She took up their idol worship. She, in a sense, that is a part of the drunkenness, is that those people of Israel knew better than to be worshiping these idols. And yet they didn't give it a thought. They just did it. And we see that here with this, all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants. Money can make a person delirious. And that, yes it does, because it's like, yes, I want more, and that more is never ending, as far as
one thing that I was reading here in Romans 1, we're talking about all these things, but it says starting at 29, it says, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who, knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but here's the real kicker, it says, but have pleasure in them that do them. You may not be out making an X-rated movie, but if you're watching X-rated movies, you're taking pleasure in that.
That's exactly right.
You don't commit witchcraft. You don't put on a witch's hat and maybe in your own life do omens and sorceries and stuff like that. But if you take pleasure in Halloween and different things that represents witches and darkness and evil spirits and scariness, you are being lulled. You're taking part of the pleasures of darkness. There's many things that we need to liken this to, but not only we that do it, but we that stand afar off and watch it and like it. We're guilty.
Yes, you're exactly right. And that a thought came to me that we're told not to give place to the devil. But you do give place. If you are watching, there are a lot of things on your TV or your computers that are considered abominations in God's eyes. If you're taking pleasure in them, I can't tell you the number of people.
Resist.
I know people personally that are addicted to scary movies,
Right.
and they don't realize. They wonder why they have anxieties and fears. They're overwhelmed with fears, but they have opened the door to demonic spirits
Right.
by partaking of these things. You're not to give place to them.
Right.
Shut the door. You don't do them because
Right.
you think, well, I'm not doing it. But if you are taking enjoyment, you are partaking.
Right.
You don't realize that you are under the influence of the devil. Okay, here's the verse 4. It says, I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. Now here's the thing. We have talked these passages in Revelation 17 and 18 talk of this woman that is referred to as a harlot, a whore. All right. So in your mind, you're thinking of a woman, but it also says that it's a great city, that she is over a lot of people all over the world.
Kind of represents the seat